fact, I've been on my soapbox talking about how generally I feel like creative is in crisis.
Right. I think the biggest obstacle in agencies is fear.
Clients, brands are also very scared right now. The way that the industry has evolved is the expectation of people.
What would you do if you weren't afraid? I was like, that's a great place to start an agency from.
Again, we come from the days where we spent millions of dollars on a 60-second TV ad.
You know, our philosophy from day one has been the riskiest thing you can do is be ignorable. And to see where everything looks the same.
Yeah.
Creativity is going to be the one thing that's going to lead you forward.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Made for TikTok. I'm Sofia Hernandez, the Global Head of Business Marketing and Commercial Partnerships here. And today I'm really honored and excited to have a conversation with Greg Hahn, the co-founder and chief creative officer of Mischief, an agency you all know very well. Greg's leadership has taken an agency from startup to one of the most celebrated and in-demand creative shops in the industry. Greg, thank you for joining us. And speaking of celebrated shops in the industry, I look at LinkedIn, I look at the trade, and I constantly see Mischief as top agency of the year. Tell me what some of the acknowledgments you've got.
First of all, thank you. Thank you for having me. And we're not shy about this, by the way.
Good.
We've got great PR in the name of Oliver McAteer. So if something happens, you will know about it. But yeah, some of the things that we've been recognized for is, like, to me, the awards that are most important are the ones that recognize the whole agency versus a piece of work. So I think that the broader picture. So the ones that you brought up would be like Ad Age Agency of the Year twice, which is crazy for us. We've been on the list every year, but we got top spot twice, which blows my mind. And then Ad Week Agency of the Year. And kind of a cool one because it's outside the world of ad agency world is GQ's top 20 most creative companies.
Oh, so, that's really amazing.
Yeah,
that's
it's the only way I'm
incredible.
going to be in GQ, by the way. So it's like, I'll take it.
By the way, not surprised. Greg and I worked together, it feels like ages ago at BBDO, and I got to personally witness the brilliance of your mind and the way you inspire your teams to do great work. So
thank you.
Thanks for being here. And we're actually going to dive into talking about the work and the evolution of the industry and creativity and the people who make things for this industry. So let's dive right in.
Let's do it. This is going to be fun.
So you spent years at big agencies, in the big agency networks. What made you want to start Mischief?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot in those years, obviously. I spent most of my career there. I learned what was working and what wasn't. At that time, I kind of was seeing what wasn't working stronger. So I was like, I want to create some place that is special and different. When I got let go of BBDO, it was in the beginning of the pandemic. Everything was kind of up in the air. Nobody knew what was going to happen next. And I kind of saw that as an opportunity to invent what was next. And looking around, like, what would my next move be? I wasn't really excited about anything. I didn't find any one place I was like dying to go or any new direction that I wanted to take. I thought, that's kind of sad that's a hole that's existing in the industry right now, is that there's no fire. Like, so I'm like, now it's time to screw things up. So let's start something and create it like my kind of, I always call it like my Willy Wonka version of an ad agency. Like, what would my dream agency be?
I love that.
Yeah, what would my dream agency be if I could just start from scratch and no rules applied and just build it from the way things I thought should be done with all my learnings of what worked and what didn't. And, I found two great partners that actually came to me, asking if I wanted to open an agency because I hadn't really thought of how to do that. I knew how to build a creative, shop, but I had no idea how to run a business. And, we just clicked instantly at same vision. And what I loved about these guys, a lot of things.
Yeah, I love that. And I think now more than ever, you're seeing a lot of that in the headlines, right? Like, businesses are cutting a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
It's all about ROI. It's all about the bottom line. And since around the pandemic time, I've seen how that has impacted creative. In fact, I've been on my soapbox talking about how generally I feel like creative is in crisis and creativity is in crisis. So let's talk about your philosophy at the agency and you personally as a creative, mind.
Right. I think the biggest obstacle in agencies is fear.
Yes.
And, especially towards the end of my run there, I kept feeling it even more. It's like, you didn't want to say anything that would upset a client or have a bad meeting,
Right.
and do anything that would scare them too much. And one of the things that made me drawn towards No Fixed Address, which was the two founders started Mischief with, they had on their site is their first line was like, "What would you do if you weren't afraid?" I was like, that's a great place to start an agency from. That's a founding principle.
Yeah.
So that's how we built it, and I think that's what we've brought from the day one is the sense of we're not afraid. And I remember our first client meeting. It was with a big national, I think it was an airline, and they said our agencies are afraid to bring us stuff like this. I was like, exactly right.
Yeah.
Like they just want to do what we think they want us to do. It's like that's not a place to build and grow. That's a place to try to maintain and not lose.
How do you encourage that with your creative teams at the company?
Well, for one thing, you just have to, you do have to be supportive of it. Like every great creative, there's agencies all over the world that have amazing ideas sitting in decks. So you have to support it. They have to know that, if they do something like that, you're not going to be afraid to show it if it's right. And you're not going to hide it in the back of the appendix. This is the kind of work we want to put forward. So I think just supporting them, and I think what helps us at Mischief and kind of sets us apart is how strategically rigid we are. Like we don't just do stuff because it's going to create buzz and it's a lot of fun. We do stuff because it's going to solve a problem, and we always start there. So when we bring these ideas to clients, it's not like we think this is going to be cool. It's like, here's the business problem we're trying to solve. Here's the insight. Here's the solution that will come out of that insight, and then it all sort of makes sense.
Are there times where you are talking to clients, whether big agents, big companies, small companies, and you decide they're not a fit for Mischief?
All the time. Yeah. I mean, we do a lot in chemistry checks. We're not one for big spec pitches. What we've found is the better way to do this is to meet with them, have really honest conversations. And I think another thing that's helped us, when we mentioned our PR, is that people know what they're getting when they reach out to us.
Yeah.
That's the value of creating a brand, not just an agency, is that you get the right kind of people coming to you for the right kind of reasons, and you're not wasting anybody's time. So it's, our churn rate's not that big because, we're starting off on a pretty equal space.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the evolution of creativity. You said that you left BBDO just before the pandemic.
During the pandemic.
Oh, during
it
the
was
pandemic.
At the pandemic, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when did you start Mischief?
3 months later.
Oh my God.
During the pandemic.
That was quick.
Yeah. Like I was let go. They had massive layoffs that day. I'm sure it was in the news and things like that, but It was like a lot of people. And I was kind of the front page of that news. And, didn't know what to do. But once we decided to open Mischief, again, it's like the new world. We started over Zoom. I never met my partners in real life for a year later.
Yes.
Hired a bunch of people that I never worked with and never met. Brought two great creative people, Bianca and Kevin, over from BBDO. And we opened, I opened in June 1st. April 16th was the day I was let go, so it was a couple months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Wow, you move fast.
Yeah. It's the new world, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of things we were just talking about. It's like it didn't work the way the old system had to.
Okay, let's dive in deeper there. So new world, things don't work the way they used to. How are you staying on the pulse of this change? Because you and I have both been in the industry long enough to have been a part of like the social media and digital transition and innovation in the industry. But now we're in somewhere completely new, and it's moving faster than ever. Yeah. So just talk to me about what you're seeing in terms of how creativity is evolving.
Yeah, well, all comes back. It has to start at the same place, and that is this idea that you love to solve problems in interesting ways. So then it becomes like, how do we do that? Well, the more interesting ways out there, the more fun it gets. So I think things like social and TikTok, those just become more fun tools to play with and experiment. That keeps it fresh. So suddenly you have to adjust your thinking, but again, you come back to like, what problem are we trying to solve? What's the most interesting, cool, whatever it is, adjective you want to use that will get people to watch it. And understanding those platforms is like the key part. So I see, it makes it fresh. It makes it interesting. If we're still doing everything on TV, billboard, and print, which is where I started, those are the three you had to work with, I'd probably be burnt out by now,
How do you encourage that kind of lean into innovation and knowing what the latest is? Do you Do you have like weekly check-ins with your creative team? Like,
Yeah.
talk to us about best practices, because
Yeah.
I know people want to lean in, but sometimes they just don't know how.
Right. I think for us, we're kind of lucky because we're young and new as far as like in agency years, but we've also brought in people who are kind of born in this, so we don't have to talk them
Yes.
into anything. They're bringing it to us,
Right.
so that kind of thing. But even for people like me, and we do have a lot of creatives that have been around for a long time, you just have to hire people that are super curious and engaged. I don't think people can be externally motivated in some ways. It all has to come from the inside. And, my philosophy is you will motivate people better with excitement than fear. So get them excited about it, show them possibilities, show them what's out there that's really great and how people are reinventing the way we advertise through these mediums. That should make them excited. If not, then maybe they should probably look somewhere else for their excitement or career.
I'm like literally like giddy and excited about how you're describing your vision for the agency or the company as like the Willy Wonka of the industry, and your fundamental belief in motivating people through excitement versus fear. There's a lot of fear out there right
Yeah.
now, especially in our industry.
Too
You
much.
mentioned like fear of taking something a little too exciting or grand to a
Yeah.
client. Clients, brands are also very scared right now, because the way that the industry has evolved is the expectation of people, or as we, in the industry like to call consumers, but what people want is for the brand to kind of show up at their level. In a lot of ways, they want to have a more authentic conversation. That's not normal for brands.
Yeah. There's usually a layer, of production and polish between a brand and a consumer.
Yes.
And those
And legal reviews.
yeah, and those rules have changed. I mean, I think brands have gotten used to that a little bit over the, as more and more happens. But I think, there's still a little hesitancy of like legal, like you say, and some of those other things. But you have to kind of let go of, this is the way I was born to do it. You kind of have to go like, well, that's not the conversations that are happening now.
Can you, just in your partnership with brands or what you're seeing in the industry, talk to us about some good examples of brands who are really kind of letting go, being a little bit more vulnerable, and
Yeah.
putting their brand in the hands
Yeah.
of the community?
Well, I mean, just from our experience, almost every one of our clients is open to that and almost demanding it. And I think like you've talked to EOS before on this show, and they're a great example. And I think what I like about them as examples, they're just so willing to try stuff. And one thing you have to learn as a client is you have to let go of control and approval of every word.
Yes.
Because what happens in these environments is you're not scripting, you're almost giving them something to react to. And how they react to it, if you're talking to an influencer, it is going to be in their own voice, and it should be, because they can't sound like they're talking for the brand. They have to talk, people come to hear what they have to say, not what the brand has to say.
What are there, it's just to guide everyone watching, are there some best practices when you're working with brands on how you get them to be more comfortable?
I think what you need to do is like when you engage with influencers, make sure they understand the brand and that you're all on the same page.
Yeah.
And and everybody agrees to what you're trying to get out of this. What problem we're trying to solve. But as you're working with clients, I think what I love about the new environment is it's so much easier to experiment. So I think for clients, you just try stuff. Like there's no harm in trying a new platform out to see what the voice is, and you don't have to stay there. But I think TikTok, for example, is a great place to experiment. If you've got, we've had some good luck with like we've got 2 or 3 things we want to put out there and we want to make, but you're not sure which one. Like they're down and dirty, cheap and easy, and really fun pieces of content. Just put them out and see what sticks. You never know what's going to stick because people latch on to certain different things that you didn't even expect.
You're so right. It is a great platform for experimentation. There are 2 things you said that I want to dive into. One is the perception of cost, right? And what things cost. Again, we come from the days where we spent millions of dollars on a 60-second TV ad. And how are you seeing that change today? Like, how are you thinking about what it costs to create things?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of ways to approach this. I think if you're doing a lot of social, everyday social, and there's a language of each platform, and you kind of have to show up like that. Otherwise, you're going to stand out and it's going to look awkward. But there's also a degree of you have to stand out in that environment. So you can't look like everybody else or just do what everyone else is doing. So, part of me thinks that there's going to be a swing back towards polish, in big production on media like TikTok and Instagram, just because that will show like some certain level of difference or sophistication or, branding. But as it is now, I think best practice, as they say, which I hate that term.
What do you prefer?
I don't know. There's something about best practice that makes it seem like you're going to do what everybody else is doing.
Got it.
It's like
no differentiation.
Yeah, it's a formula for blending in.
Yeah.
But anyway, the best way to engage with these platforms right now is to feel like you belong there or seem like you belong there, which is putting aside the massive budgets and shooting stuff on the fly and
yeah.
But it still has to have an idea. I think that's what's going to separate you is the quality of your idea, not the quality of your production.
Got it. Yeah. I love that. Okay, so we talked about cost. Let's talk about speed, right? Because that also has changed a lot.
Yeah.
And I've had creators on stages with me where out of the blue, I'm like, hey, I'm X brand. Tell me how you'd pull, and I want to sell a sneaker. Tell me how you'd pull together an idea. And within 60 seconds, creators can concept, right?
Yeah.
And come up with something. And then within the next hour, they can make it on their phone. So how has that influenced the way you make things?
Yeah, it has a lot. And I think it's also influenced our clients because the approval process has to be like that too. Because I think a thing that holds up a lot of work is just getting it through the layers on the client side. So they've all become way more nimble. It's crazy that the number of things we've gotten approved over text message, especially like something pops up on social like at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and we'll just text our clients and go,
really?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm excited that this is happening.
Yeah, this is one of our first things we did for Aura Ring was, this is way back in 2020, the first election. And, Aura Ring has a thing where they tell you how much you slept. And, on election night, I'm like, I bet nobody's sleeping. I'm just going to text and say, do you guys have information on aggregate on how much America is sleeping? Like, yeah, we can get that for you tomorrow. The next day or the day after, we had a billboard that on Times Square that showed, how much America lost sleep on the night of the election. So it happened like that overnight.
That's incredible.
So texting, so that's sort of translated into the way we do a lot of our social is if we see something out there, we'll put in, in the eyes of our clients and they'll approve it like that. We did something with Chili's very similar as we noticed that somebody had catered their wedding with Chili's. So we were texting back and forth with our clients, like, what if we did a contest where if you propose in a Chili's, we'll cater your wedding? Like, a number of days later, we had all this content about people proposing on this is all on TikTok, proposing to get married so we would cater their wedding. We actually did.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so it's really fun. It's a conversation in social, so you can do that.
Yeah, and okay, so I just tactically I have to ask this: is the legal team on those texts, or is it just you and the brand team?
At first, it's just us, but they quickly bring it through legal. And legal's gotten really great at not playing it so like at the very worst case scenario. They're like, you could do this, this, and this. Here's some risks, but not big. Assessing the risk.
That. Yeah. I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah.
On the client side, things are evolving, and we're cutting through the red tape and getting to answers quickly.
If clients are watching this, I would say you just look internally because your agencies will bring you stuff if you can get it through and approved. In social, especially on TikTok, it's sometimes if you're not on time, you're worse off doing it.
100%.
Yeah.
We often tell brands that the conversation is happening about your brand. You can choose to be a part of it or not, but you're definitely not leading it always.
Right.
So how do you stay on the pulse of that? You did this for EOS as well, right? Back in the day with Carly Joy.
Yeah, Carly Joy, one of the things that broke through for us with EOS, and they noticed, Carly Joy, who's this influencer. I'm not going to quote what she's, her instructions, but she did some really kind of graphic and really funny instructions about how to shave with EOS shave cream.
Yes.
And our clients noticed it was getting a ton of views, and it was like, this is actually really, really great tutorial about how to shave with EOS.
Right.
So we, we reached out to her and said, thank you for this, but we never really heard back from her. So what we learned, a great lesson there is like sometimes you won't contact them and give them a script because influencers and creators don't really need a script from you. What worked really well for us is we gave her something to react to. So we ended up like taking her exact word for word instructions with all the, the language as is and putting them on EOS bottles as like instructions for use. Word for word with all the bless you can beep this out, but her whole shtick was like bless your fucking cooch.
Yep.
So
we know it well.
You know well, yeah. I'm sure a lot of your viewers do. So we created Cooch Blessing Cream with her instructions on the back, and we sent it to her, and she did a whole video about it, and that blew up. And we sold them at online. And I think they were in Walmart or Target with those words on it, and it became kind of a thing, and it sold so much. We just instantly saw results. So it kind of taught us like this is a whole new world how you engage. You don't script it as much. You don't necessarily tell them exactly what you want them to do, but you understand their brand.
Yeah.
They understand your brand, and you give them something to react to.
Well, and more importantly, I think, is you're out there listening. Like you're a part of the community, and you're there listening. Talk to me about comments and what you think about the comments section. Yeah,
it's fun to see brands interact with the comments, and they're in the same voice as the commenters. So again, I think people really like when you step outside your corporate roles and act as a human. I do think that, you have to act as your brand should, quote unquote should. But I think like if you try too hard or try to be, too in the groove, it will appear inauthentic. And it's better just be yourself and don't try too hard. But it's fun to act like a human more than a brand.
Yeah. And what about you as a creative leader? How do you use comments? Do you use it to stay on the pulse of the conversation and the community? Are you checking comments regularly?
On our work?
Yeah.
I try not to be honest with you, but you can't help it. I think what happens is a few voices become very loud, and for me, the reason I try not to look at comments is because I won't believe the good ones and I'll take the bad ones straight to heart.
Isn't that just all of us, right?
Yeah, right. So it's like, that's not good for your health, But, it's good to hear instant reaction, but I do think like it's not a true view because, most people don't comment on stuff. And especially in this industry, it can get pretty toxic.
Yeah. I think what we see on TikTok is the comments tend to lean more positive.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
I agree with that.
I think it's more celebratory. And what started to happen, because I've been talking about TikTok with brands since the 2020, since the pandemic, what started to happen was it became a conversation on TikTok.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was less like, let me just throw a comment at you. And it was, hey, Greg, can I see your skull socks in blue? Or, talk to us about X.
No,
what?
I said, come to my website, by the way.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, cool. What's your website?
No, I'm just kidding. I don't have one. Well, mischiefUSA.com.
Yeah.
We do have merch on there.
Do you?
We do.
All right. We'll have to check that out. But yeah, it started to be like a conversation between the creators and then between people in the comments. And there are some brand leaders who are very good at kind of being in there, even if they're not speaking on behalf of the brand, but just listening, right? And really engaging and understanding.
Yeah. And also sending them stuff. Like when people reach out and go, God, this is so beautiful. I love that. Engage. That's a perfect place to create a fan.
Yeah.
I think you're right. The biggest difference is it's now a conversation. It's not performative.
Right.
Where on a lot of social networks, it's performative. Like my comment is here to engage and to enrage and to get more comments and to get likes. This is like, I want some information. I want to hear what you have to say about what I'm putting out there.
Yeah. I like engage and enrage.
Yeah.
We definitely have seen a shift from the social networks that existed the last 10, 15 years. And TikTok, which really is an entertainment platform, you sit and you consume content, right? It's not about like, oh, what are Greg and his family doing on vacation, right? It's not 6 degrees. It really is the world.
It's what broadcast did, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, is that it was put stuff out there to entertain. It wasn't meant to gather, so your friends and family
Correct.
to watch. You wanted people out there, strangers, to watch.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I think that's an interesting thing about TikTok, how it's evolved, because again, like, what can advertisers do differently is that it's more of an education platform than anything right now. It's become like the world's best learning tool, and search.
Yes.
So I think
search, discovery, education are core to what this platform is.
Right, because if you're looking, you could Google search a restaurant and kind of get an idea of what it's all about, but you go to TikTok and you hear like people, real feelings, and you see
and
it.
you're immersed into it, right? It's
and
an
you
experience.
hear like experiences there, and it's kind of like, okay, I know what I'm signing up for.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's become really exciting space for us to play with, but it's everything is changing all at once, so it's a lot to play with.
So we've talked about how making things has evolved and the things we're making have evolved. Let's dive into that. How are you getting more efficient with how you're making things at Mischief?
So speaking of Willy Wonka, as we were, we just actually opened up a new studio called the Candy Factory, and that is, to address this idea of speed and how to go from idea to production to putting it out in the world in a matter of hours sometimes versus days or weeks. So what we've done is, like, we have a studio space actually in our office, and when we get approval and we get everything creatively figured out, we can just immediately go over there and shoot it if it's a quick social thing or down and dirty production. So that's greatly increased the amount of work we can put out, and decreases the time it takes to do it.
That's incredible. Yeah. I know you talked about how you bring in like new curious people. How do and you've clearly done this as a veteran in the industry, like, how do you get people who have been in the industry, creative people for 15 plus years, how do you get them to think at that speed or differently about how they create, etc.?
Yeah, I think you just got to immerse them in the environment, constantly expose people to what's happening out there, what's good, good always changes as far as like in terms of production and style, but ideas are still needed, and I think hire people who come up with great ideas who are open to ways to bringing them out. And we have times where we share work or share what's happening and try to bring in as many new thinkers as we can to talk to the agency, and arming them with the right tools and the right kind of platforms and knowledge to play around and experiment. And if you look at Mischief's social, you'll see we screw around a lot with AI and things like that, and just even if it's not perfect, and it should just be have that Mischief kind of edge to it. But,
all right, I was waiting to see if you were going to say the buzzword or if I was going to say the buzzword first. AI.
Wait, what? I know. It's just new. Yeah. No, you cannot have a conversation about creativity and advertising without talking about it. It is the the term du jour.
Yeah, it was big at Cannes this year, big conversation. I think it's been buzzy for the last 2 years in our industry. Yeah. What are your thoughts on AI and creativity? There are some people who think like, it's terrible, it's replacing everything and everyone, it's unoriginal. That's not my personal point of view. I'd love to hear yours.
It's hard to have a blanket point of view because it's used in so many different ways and in so many different stages. I can tell you where I think it works best and where I think it's lacking. Works great in research and competitive and get to know and up to speed, that kind of thing, and testing out different theories of what if I tried this, in strategy and things like that. It's great. It's also really good in certain ways in production, not always. I think there's a level where you can definitely feel it's AI, and that will put such distance between you and the consumer. So I don't think we're there yet with production, but there are things you could do, maybe some edits and versioning and lower funnel stuff that it can do quickly and efficiently. But idea-wise, here's where humans are most valuable, is in that idea statement. What I urge everybody to do is do not turn to AI for the blank page, right? The blank page is your space, and that is where you're supposed to make the mistakes, because that is where you learn what you're thinking. I always say I write not to show people what I'm thinking, but I write to learn what I'm thinking. And it's that experiment. It's like the wrong turns and the mistakes, and AI won't do that. AI is geared to find the most common answer. And if everybody is using AI at the very first stage, when they're just trying to pull ideas together, everyone's going to come up with the same kind of ideas.
Right.
Yeah. So I urge everybody to think like yourself, for beginning stages of an idea. If you need help crafting it or coming up with a list of 20 names for something, whatever, it can help you that way. But if you're just starting out to try and solve a problem creatively, don't turn to AI as a crutch. Yeah, I was reading some interesting study that they did this test they did with AI, and they asked all the different AI platforms, or the leading ones, 100 times to pick a number between 1 and 10. Yeah, it was 1 and 10.
Okay.
99, I think 90 times it picked the number 7. And if you try this at home, ask ChatGPT to pick a number between 1 and 10. Guarantee you, let me know if it doesn't, that it picks 7.
Yeah.
And that is because that's the most common picked number. So it tells you it's going to bring you back the answer that everyone else is thinking.
Yes.
So if you want to think differently, don't start with AI, because they are going to give you the most common answer. And they're trained to not think on mistakes. They're trained to think of solutions and correctness. And creativity is about what happens on the edges. AI is about what happens down the middle. So again, for creativity and thinking in that middle insights part, I think humans are best.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Thinking along the edges versus down the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what makes the work so brilliant. You did a spot for the Super Bowl last year before, for Tubi?
We did too. The first one we did for Tubi was 2 years ago, when it was like our second year of existence at Mischief. Yeah.
And tell me about it. Tell me about the spot, because I think that's very much thinking on the edges.
Yeah, that was a fun one, because it was like our big first, I would call it global, stage, because everybody watches Super Bowl. We all know the numbers. But for Tubi, what we did that year was to make it look like in the middle of the Super Bowl. It was at the end of the Super Bowl, very close. I think it was tied game. Last commercial spot, we made it look like somebody in the room had changed the station to Tubi, and it was like a quick 15-second spot. We, for the most part, produced it in house, and it caused a lot of reaction and a lot of stir and a lot of interest in Tubi, and they immediately saw results from that. And I think that was one breakthrough moment for both that brand and for our brand, to say, like, this is how we enter the world stage as Mischief, and come check out Tubi, because we're different. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. How often are you using AI? Are you using it daily? Are you using in whatever capacity?
Yeah, I mean, I think it transfers into every department. So we're probably, for sure, daily. Maybe not on the production, the last stage is daily, but in places we do, definitely in the beginning stages of like the pulling things together, the research, trying to gather as much as we can. We spend a lot of time on strategy at Mischief.
Yeah.
Yeah, we spend. You always say, there's 2 steps to our process. One is what to say, and then the second is like, what's the most interesting way to say that. Mm-hmm. We spend probably 80% of our time on the what to say, the first part, because once you got that right, the second part becomes easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where we use a lot of AI in, just gathering information and insights, and with the social listening, all that kind of stuff.
So you've said that you're using AI to inform strategy, to really figure out what you want to say. And then creatives are really important, and creative thinking when it comes to how you're going to say that. That's the most interesting. That's the hook.
Yeah.
That's how you connect with audiences. How are you using AI, though, when it comes to creative production?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, the stuff we've done that's full 100% AI creatively produced has been experimenting in-house. So on our social, again, I point to that, is we have some videos that were 100% AI generated. And we did some experiments to see how people would react to it. We recently did an experiment with Sora where we put out a series of Halloween tapes that were like discovered old VHSs that somebody found in their brownstone that were like it was all about like this hidden place called the Candy Factory where some horrible things happened, right? And it was just like found footage kind of stuff. And we put it out. It was all done with Sora. It was obviously Sora. And the reaction to that was so mixed. It was like people were really upset that we did this. And that's kind of what we did it for. Yeah, we were doing it as an experience to see like what happens if you just put out Sora content. And it's this idea of brain rot and so much of it. And I kind of thought of it as like at this point where Sora was, it's like showing people your pictures of your family. Super interesting to you. Nobody else gives a shit. You know, it's because there's no soul there. It's all just I pressed a button and something cool came out. You know? So I think what's really important with creators and creatives using AI is that there's still some humanity there. Mm-hmm. I think people want to feel connected to the creator, and when it just feels like it's output of a machine and there's no voice, there's no soul, and it's too easy. I think people lose that connection, and it almost becomes more pollution than anything.
Yeah. We've put out a set of AI tools to help automate things. So our AI suite of tools is called Symphony. And we have things that just help creative people or brands iterate, make things faster. So you can take a photo of a glass of water and then you can prompt it to have a hand to pick up the water and take a drink.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything like that?
Well, I think things like that, it's really useful, supplemental footage and things that don't necessarily require you don't want a whole day shoot for that, you know? So it can be very efficient that way if it's seamless. I think where AI is actually really good is when you obviously know it's AI and it's done to bring fantastical visuals and things that so obviously couldn't be done in the real world to life. Yeah. And I think it's allowing people to express things that they normally couldn't. So it's opening up doors versus closing doors for other people.
Yeah, so I love that.
Yeah, I think one thing, we've found that's really fun is just like give those tools to anybody, like the things you're putting on TikTok, see what the world does with the same tools. Yeah, and see their take on it and their version of it. And I think that's where it's also become pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of what TikTok did when it entered the world. It's, we talk a lot about how culture is created here, but we're not creating culture. We gave the world a tool, and people took the tool and kind of connected with each other and made cool things and shared their interests and expressed their passions. And like the people are what really made this tool and this platform what it is.
I think that's the difference in what we're kind of getting to is like humanity has to come through at the end.
Yes.
And I think when you're just pressing a button, putting two words into Sora and it's giving you this full-blown piece of video, people are losing the humanity in that. But if you have a good idea behind it, and which I actually thought our hidden tapes at least had an idea behind it, but it was just the production of it was so turnkey that I think people lost the soul of it. So
I gotta watch these. I gotta watch these hidden tape videos.
Come check out it's either on our definitely on our TikTok, but it might be on our Instagram, and then LinkedIn has some we actually did it as an experiment, and LinkedIn has some learnings that we got from it, which is sort of akin to the conversation we're having now.
Oh, cool. Cool. All right, so what's on your For You page? When you're on TikTok, what are you watching?
It's interesting because it's different than like Instagram, because Instagram's it's like all heavy metal guitar players from the 80s. And but here I actually love TikTok. The reason I go to TikTok is because it's a little bit more expansive. And for some reason, I must have clicked on how to do magic tricks for some reason, because I get a lot of content, and it's so engrossing. It's like behind the scenes of how to do. I get all this magic content, and I'm kind of fascinated.
Greg, were you one of those kids that was a magician?
No, Ask my child. I'm like the worst musician ever, but I still love it. So I guess maybe I was, but not good at it. I was never good at it, but I get fascinated by it. Again, it comes down to this whole thing of like attention and where you focus your attention, and that's kind of what we do in advertising. But so a lot of stuff about magicians, a lot of movie reviews and what to watch on Netflix and things like that. Yeah, and then what else do I get? A lot of random art kind of projects, which are cool. Yeah, so and I'm trying to think. There are a few in there that I was like, why am I getting this? I think especially in the early days of my use of TikTok, was the algorithm would start feeding me stuff and I didn't think I was interested in, and I click it, and then it started feeding more stuff. Suddenly you're way over here in the woods of something you never thought you'd be interested in, and I am. Yeah.
That's the beauty of the algorithm.
Yeah.
And when it comes to brands, I think what's important is, one, for brands to show up often, right?
Yeah.
And the algorithm will find your audience, and it will find the adjacencies and really serve up your content to people that might be interested.
Yeah. Another one that I'm constantly getting fed of is psychological tricks. Yeah. I don't know. It's like, this is all about deception I'm feeling, but yeah, that and like origins. I really got interested in the origins of words, etymology. So it's like you can geek out on anything on TikTok. And now I've learned a lot of stories behind words. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So you've covered everything you said earlier: discovery, education. Yeah. What are you searching for? Not in life, on TikTok.
Yeah. Usually if I want to learn something interesting, or the shortcuts to how to do something.
Okay.
Especially it's my IT, like how do I change my, in Google Maps, or, how do I change my location? It's a really good tutorial for things like that. And I am kind of an 80s guitar junkie nerd. So it's like, how do you play the opening to Crazy Train?
Got it.
Whatever.
I love that. Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that's a confession.
Yeah. So we were both at BBDO back in the late 2000s, and, there were a lot of best practices back then. What's something you feel like we chased in the industry or in advertising back in the day that we just shouldn't anymore?
Well, I can speak for me personally. I mean, for me, it's the individual awards. Like, I love them. I know why they're important, but I understand they're motivating to our team, so I think they're still important for me. I just don't get what I used to get out of winning a Lion. The award I really actually have grown to love and really appreciate are the Effies, because they measure something that's super objective and not as subjective, and it's about results and impact and actually using creativity again to solve problems and have a real impact on your client's business. So I am super proud to say that we won Agency of the Year, Independent Agency of the Year at Effie's, a couple of years. So that's the one I really actually never really paid attention to as a creative, as a young creative. It was like I was more selfish. So I guess that's the difference for me, is like I'm less self-motivated about like I want another award for me. I want them for our teams, but for the agency, I'd rather get an Effie than, any other, I would say.
I love that.
Yeah.
You did a video for an award show, was it? Where you said it's the year 2035 or 2045. What was that?
Oh, yeah. So that's like, if you look on Mischief's YouTube page, you'll see like the very first thing we did. And that was when it was the summer of 2020. So we probably were around for a week or so, right?
Yeah, you just launched.
It was August. We launched in June, so we had no work to show for it. But I was asked to give a keynote at agency's small agency conference, and so I wanted to start off with a video. So the conceit it was like the 20th year something anniversary of the conference. So the conceit was like I did a video celebrating the 40th year. So it was like a futuristic sci-fi video of AI, kind of giving this retrospective. And the reason that we brought up a TikTok, as we were talking earlier, was that the conceit was, here's what's happening in 2040. And it was a celebration of the 30th year of TikTok, and the second year that advertisers knew what to do with them. And that was because at 2020, nobody really knew.
Yeah,
Like we
it's
didn't.
true.
There's so few advertisers using TikTok and doing really interesting things with it and breaking out of the mold with it. How far we've come in
How
5 years.
far we've
Yeah,
come.
now it's the
Yes.
dominant. Now it's on everybody's radar. It's part of every communication matrix that we put out there. So congratulations to you guys. You beat the metric by 35 years or so. Yeah.
Well, congratulations to you guys for being on the pulse of it, because not everybody is there yet, and we hope to get them there.
Yeah.
But speaking of the future,
Yeah.
how do you want people to describe Mischief in 5 years? Where do you want to be as an agency?
Yeah, I think the answer is probably similar to where we are now, in that we want our work to be known for a place that creates work that creates an impact. And the way we do that is creating work that becomes part of culture and conversation, and that makes a big difference on our clients' business. Because that's really what it's all about. It's like finding the more creative, the more out there, and the more interesting ways you can impact your client's business, the better it will be for the industry, I think. Because it shows that creativity actually works. I love our clients getting recognized for, being successol at the metrics that matter to shareholders or things like that.
Yeah.
Through the work we do that they would probably never approve,
Yeah.
those kind of, those shareholders themselves. They'd be like, why would you do this? And they have the results to prove it.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks well of creativity and taking chances.
I think today, when I talk to creative agency leaders or creatives at creative agencies, they're mentioning a lot of the bad behaviors that you did earlier. They're scared to bring clients certain ideas. There's a lot of pressure to deliver. Clients are scared to put really creative things out there sometimes. What's the one or two messages you have to creative folks watching this in terms of like how to really reclaim that and go at it bold?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, this could be a whole nother podcast, but I think the most important thing is that you understand where they're coming from and what problem they're trying to solve, and show that you're doing this as a strategic way to meet their goals and not as a creative way to boost your portfolio.
Or win a lion.
Yeah, or win a lion. Yeah, you have to know your goals are aligned. And then once you show them, here's a strategy, here's an insight from your consumers, here's what they're saying, here's what they're watching, here's what they're engaging with, here's what we're going to do to solve the problem that comes back to the original insight. It should all make sense. It shouldn't feel like, why would you do that? I always say, like, the best, most creative solutions are perfectly obvious, but only after we show you. So it should all click when we show you that. It should be like an inevitable answer. It may feel risky to someone who hasn't been on that journey, but it actually isn't, because it's backed by some solid thinking. And our philosophy from day one has been the riskiest thing you can do is be ignorable. And if you're spending all your money and time and capital in putting something out there that nobody remembers seeing or notices, you might as well not have spent it at all. Better to go out and do something that people at least remember.
Yeah. We do a lot of research, obviously, here, and there are a few stats that really stand out to me. One is that 50% of people say ads are boring, which
I'm surprised it's not even higher.
But like half of the money we're spending, right, is not resonating, which in an ROI world is really, really amazing. But also 71% of TikTok users want brands on the platform, which blows my mind every time it comes out of my mouth. But it means that brands and people can really engage with each other and create joyful moments if they show up the right way.
Yeah. And this is a major plus for creative agencies and the value of them now. And we see a bunch of holding companies and things conglomerating around data, and creativity is not even part of that conversation. It makes me feel like you guys are missing the most important part. And that's why you're seeing such a surge of creative shops popping up and doing well, because that's the one thing you can't replace, and it's the one thing that's become the most valuable, because in the sea where everything looks the same, creativity is going to be the one thing that's going to lead you forward.
I love that. Thank you so much, Greg. This has been incredible.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been really fun to be here and talk to you.
I'm inspired. Thank you. And
Likewise.
We'll talk soon.
Awesome.
And thanks to everyone for tuning in to Made for TikTok. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any other episodes. We always have such incredible leaders on the show, and I learned so much listening to them. I'm sure you will too. See you next time. Bye.